So it looks like you guys have been doing a lot of stuff at the bookstore near you, right?
Um,
I
yeah,
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
a little bit.
what's that been like?
Well, all right. So a couple members of Leaping Laughter have shown up at the things that I've presented publicly. Basically, it's just once a month. I started it out to be sort of a thing to talk about Thelema on a local level that wasn't OTO or order involved, but it kind of got boring after a few weeks. And so I kind of shifted it back to doing the kind of thing that I generally have done for the last 13 years. So I don't know. I mean, things are going back to just being Rufus Opus and hermetics and doing magic and conjuring spirits and seeing what happens, and as opposed to talking about Crowley all the time without any context.
It's been nice to have have a new community to hang out with. I think we got involved with those people because of a new friend of mine who is a leader in the Left Hand Path community here.
Mm-hmm.
And she helped us gain entree into the bookstore, but also, once Josh talked the first time, then I think we have standing invitations to speak there or do ritual there or whatever. We did the courtship of chaos in Babylon there a couple months ago, and that was cool.
Mm-hmm. That sounds really neat.
What bookstore? What Left Hand Path leader?
The Left Hand Path leader, I guess her Facebook handle is Jezebel Pride.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she's super awesome. And bookstore is
Satanic Masseuse.
Well, she actually runs all of the Left Hand Path recovery stuff here in Minnesota.
Now I know who she is. Right? Yeah.
Left Hand Path recovery stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Alcoholics Anonymous for people who don't believe in the big guy on the cloud, kind of.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool.
You had her on Thelema now.
No,
No?
I
could have swore I heard maybe she was on Andre's show. I know I heard her on a show once.
Yeah, she gets around for sure.
She was on Shy Ones.
Oh, right. Yes.
Shy Ones.
Yep. Which is nice.
The kind of having communities on halt thing has been sort of nice for me. Like with transitioning from what I'd been doing to new stuff, it's kind of like a mad rush of things because you've got trying to set up New Orpheum and all the Dionysian stuff, and then stuff with Mal Strangefellow and Church of Light and Shadow, and then people in another organization asking me to look at their stuff.
Yeah.
And it's
you mean PTO?
Which I'm not involved with.
Right.
But
absolutely not.
It's just a lot. And so yesterday it just kind of dawned on me. It's like, as much as sitting in my house by myself is kind of boring and it's been annoying not getting to run my fencing practices, it's like, whoa, there's actually no pressure to try to have materials or events or anything, because even if I went and rented a space, I couldn't have people in the space. So I don't have to look for any of that until I've got everything much more set up.
Planning is really good. We're discovering that at work. We don't have any capacity to build things or test things or anything like that, and so kind of what we're doing is just planning the absolute shit out of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good. It feels good.
So, all right. So that's a lot like Sarah, or you're just watching.
Oh yeah. Well, I know that usually when me and BJ get together, we're like, yeah, I haven't been doing a lot. And then we go on for hours with all the things we've been doing. But I actually have, I swear this time, I have not been doing a lot.
That was one of the things that I talked about in the conversation with Iquus Knox. She was asking about like if you would do the Abermelin operation again, and I was like, well, one of the things that happens at the Brodepti meetings is we all come in and we all talk about how we haven't been doing any magical work and we aren't doing anything at all. And then a few minutes later, we're all like, oh yeah, I conjured this spirit like yesterday, and like last week I did this, and I've been doing these daily offerings and devotionals. And
But that doesn't count.
yeah, like, well, when it's not like cloistering yourself in a monastery for 6 months, then
Right.
it's like nothing counts.
Well, I mean,
But no, since I've been in Texas, I got really burnt out the past few years working with demons, and I was just over it. They're very difficult, and it's not that they're disobedient. It's just they're so
literal.
just heavy. Just I can't
So
deal with.
demony.
Yes. And I was like, I just need a break. And so I have not. It's been like most of the work I've been told to do. And I was like, I just need a break. I can't. So I have not talked to any spirit since I've been in Texas, and it's been like a year.
Wow. Yeah, I noticed there was something you were talking about doing, and you weren't talking about conjuring a demon for it. And I was going to ask, but
I'm like, I'm close to starting again. It's been a year, so I'm like, I gotta get back into it. But I'm like, they're just so, I don't know, oppressive. I actually think it was Jason who talked about that kind of recently. The company you keep, how it affects your energies. It's just,
Oh yeah.
I couldn't deal with it. And I asked my HGA, I'm like, why do I have to do this? I don't want to work with demons. And it was like, because you can handle it. Like, well, I need a break. I need a break. But I think it's about time to get back into it.
Did
Give
you?
them all jobs and then pay attention to something else.
Do the what job?
To give all the demons jobs and then let them do their thing.
Yeah.
What makes you say, Sarah, that it's time to get back into it? Is that just an urge you have, or did you have a sign, or?
No, it is kind of just an urge. Like, I've been latent for so long. I think the only thing that I've done is this past year is work with my familiars. And I did a devotional for a little while to Freya. That was a reach. I don't have any like connection to the Norse gods. But I wanted to love her, and she brought me the cowboy, who turned out to be a Viking racist. So I kind of gave up on that.
Bummer.
All right. So, Sarah, I would like to offer my apologies about that.
It was great otherwise.
I conjured you a thelemic cowboy.
Did you really?
Yeah, and
Well, make
yeah.
sure it's not racist next time.
It's a cowboy. Give me a break. The fuck you want from me?
I like that you're like, I'm not working with demons or talking to demons. I work with my familiars still pretty regularly.
Well, I'm not going to ignore them. They don't count.
But
they're always there for me. You know, the big one.
I think that's one of the things that stands out to me with some of the people who are on the there's no difference with demons and angels, and the demons are all misunderstood, and they're not really infernal, and they're just like these like earthbound, like they hang out where your dead people hang out. Like it's like, have those people talked to a demon? Because demons are creepy.
All right, but how many of those people have talked to an angel either? I mean,
That's a good point.
They are not much better.
Yeah, but it's a very different spin. It's like the same sort of immensity and gravity, but in very different directions.
Yeah, but I think it's just an accent.
I was thinking about this last year, and because I wrote a thing on Saint Cyprian for the New World Revelor press thing, whatever comes out, and I was thinking about it, and you know, you've got good and evil, and you've got light and darkness, and you've got solar and lunar, and you've got in Tibet wrathful and peaceful, and in Haiti you've got hot and cold. But the more I think about it, the best, like the way I think about the difference between working with demons and angels is sort of, if it's an individualist answer, like if it's you've got to do this and basically fuck everybody else, or you're doing this against, you know, what normally society expects, demons are your go-to. And if it's sort of like, I need to get everyone on board, or I need to get the collective on board, or if I need to get the bureaucracy to roll with me, or I need to roll with them, then it's angels, like collectivist versus individualist. And within there, you've got some on each side that are hot and or cold, some on each side that are assholes and peaceful, and some on each side that are, you know, that's the best differentiator that I've ever found. But
no, that makes sense. Like,
it's kind of like pornography, though. You can't really define it, but you know it when you see it.
yeah.
Well, as long as they're effective, right?
I feel like that's an argument we used to have frequently, Josh. Like,
Look, if I get what I want, it worked.
well, that's one of the things that like often like bothers me is like, 'cause I'm very much like, yeah, I don't conjure demons. I don't like to conjure demons, which is not true. I do conjure demons, but like, I'm always like, no, I'm definitely more of an angel guy. But then there's stuff that I get frustrated about, and I'm like, oh, why is this not working out? It's like, well, I keep calling these angels, they keep telling me to be a better person. And like, this is how you can do work to make this happen.
Why don't you be more
Oh,
patient?
demon, it just doesn't
Yeah.
for me.
Meanwhile, yeah, no, but isn't it the same thing though? I mean, whether the demons or the angels are telling you to do things, doesn't it turn out the same?
I can't hear the angels when like I do angel work. It always works, but I like some feedback to know that I'm doing something. The demons are chatty. The angels are like silent. And
Sarah,
I don't
that's
know
because you're basically evil.
that's what I'm worried
You know,
about.
the problem is that you can't get in touch with that divinity current there because
I feel like they don't want to talk to me.
No, it's not that. They communicate in like smells like basil, and it's like, who notices basil in the fucking room? You know, it takes some. No, no, you're just more cowboy hats and boots, kind of. That's
demonic.
So I don't,
It can be.
you know, I think it would be an interesting way to consider this whole thing, Sarah, if you were to look at yourself as a sensor rather than putting so much value judgment in your experience. I think I think what you said is kind of true for me too, and that demons are pretty eager to talk to you, and angels are a little bit like, I have things to do. but you know, it could be a peculiarity of the way our heads work, and not at all anything about the spirits themselves.
I feel like they just scan my credentials and then do the thing, and I'm like, well, I didn't get like a beat to tell me that.
Wait. Go back to your credentials. Tell us more about your credentials, Sarah.
They're like, oh, you've got the HGA thing. Okay, fine. But like, I didn't get like a beep to say that, like, my credentials were verified.
But if the turnstile opens,
you get into the hotel room, but it never shows you it's unlocked.
Do you get like a punch card so that on the 10th conjuration you get like a
Wait. Do you have a Skirlin thing with the triangle in your blood and all that stuff?
Oh, what?
What?
Hey.
Oh.
What's the Skirlin?
I'm sorry. Skirlin?
Is this like how you did things in the 70s? Like...
No, this was like the 1700s. The thing with the blood.
Grimoire Verum.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a diamond, not a triangle, but yeah.
Same thing. It's like 2 triangles.
Harper, he needs to go
I'm
back
sorry.
to basic geometry.
I think I got stuck on trying to arrange like the goat sacrifice on that. Like the guy that I talked to was like, I'm not sure I'm allowed to help you with that.
Wait. I just realized something. Josh is like diamond, triangle, same thing. That's where Goetia went wrong.
It's not. It's where it went right.
You've been trying to conjure them into a diamond.
Oh, no.
Is that what modern Goetic grimoire is going to be? Like
They're like,
use, like playing
double
cards
triangle,
and lay out
lots
diamonds.
of room. It's not.
You know, if I send Nephilim Press one more version of the book, they are going to shit themselves completely and be completely upset with me.
Did you use archangels on your table?
I don't know.
I think you actually fixed that.
I might have. I don't know.
I think I've gone off on people a couple times about giving you crap about that.
Yeah, I have too. Once or twice.
So Suze is on board.
Yeah,
Hi,
hey Suze.
Suze! You got to say something, Suze.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
So I think with
Have a
Sa-
please.
Oh, the cat sacrifice.
So Sarah talking about the difference in the communication with the angels and demons. I had never thought about that before, but my experience is basically the opposite. Like the angels talk to me a lot. The demons don't really say anything. But the more I thought about it, for me, it's the method. When I conjure demons, I'm almost always asking my HGA to go retrieve the demon and then using an Abramelin square. And so I'm not really talking to the demon a whole lot. I'm just like, here's the square, HGA, please make it go do this thing. Or if I'm doing a more formal conjuration, those are the ones where I've used a scryer. I've never used a scryer with an angel, but most of my demon conjurations have had scryers or have been Abramelin style. So I've just never given them the opportunity to talk to me, I don't think.
All right. Harper. So, most of our angel conjurations, Harper has been the scryer for the operations.
Yeah, I guess for me, they're probably really similar. I don't think, I think for me, the difference is that when we go before the angels, we have a thing that we're requesting, and that request is not, hey dude, what are you like? and under normal circumstances, that's what we've been doing with the demons. So we're kind of performing some almost let's call it material characterization on various beasties, and it's and that sort of interaction is really different than you know, save my tootsies when I come home from Rochester. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that's interesting that like you're going to the angels for the more specific requests and the demons for the more like explore that part of the universe type of thing. Like
Well, that's also because we were trying to figure out what the demons are all about. You know, I mean, what makes a demon and an angel an angel? That characterization that we place them in. What are our criteria for that?
I mean, it's basically righteousness versus eternal hellfire and damnation.
No, Jesus, go back to your tomb. You need 3 more days. Come on. No, that's not what it's about. It's not about that. It's not about righteousness versus hellfire. That differentiation is entirely a mistranslation, right? I mean,
Because you're not righteous anymore, man. Of course you'd say that.
well, I guess not.
But hold on.
I'm joking.
Let's actually play with that a little bit. I mean, so one of the things I'm interested in these days is the PGM, and the PGM has got this, usually has a proviso in every spell about ritual purity. And so what happens if none of us are ritually pure? What would that be? You know, what does that mean to people?
Well, that's something that comes up in Judaic mysticism, that they have an element of, as you move through time periods in history, then we move further and further away from the moment at Sinai and the reception of the law, and so people naturally become less and less righteous over time. And so that's where you have, like, after the period of, like, the patriarchs is over, then you have, like, the judges, and then you have the sages, and then those periods are over. But there's another element with the Merkabah system, that because the temple is destroyed, there's certain purification rituals that can't be done without the temple, and so no one can be fully ritually clean, and so certain elements of mysticism are closed off to people because no one can be clean enough. The loophole being that Gentiles are not expected to be as ritually clean, and so therefore Gentiles could maybe approach those systems because we don't have the same rules. But it's sort of an interesting way of looking at it, that based on conditions of history and conditions of circumstance, that it could be impossible for certain mystical or magical things to occur anymore. I don't know if that's kind of the same as what you were getting at, or if that's different.
Oh, I think I'm just interested in exploring what ritual purity means to someone who's not really participating in a system where ordinarily where that has any meaning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so that's not a thing that's described in any degree of detail in the EGC, for example. Right? What would ritual purity be to someone performing the Gnostic Mass? People don't talk about it.
No. I think there's a lot of room for more structural elements there, and I think especially in comparison that since the EGC officially doesn't acknowledge exorcism, then it creates a weird juxtaposition where how do you then do spirit conjurations if you can't have exorcism as part of your system? So that it's like, well, where do questions of things like ritual purity fall if there's not mechanics involved where you need them?
Right. Thanks.
I like
thanks,
the wiggle there, Jason.
Thanks for fielding that question.
Jason, I was saying I liked your kind of there on the exorcism thing.
Yeah, for me, exorcism and evocation are the same thing. Binding by oath. For me, ritual purification is about separation from divinity. Things bring you away from it, and things bring you towards it. And how that operates can depend on what avenue you're taking, for me anyway. So for instance, the historical avenue that you just spoke about is absolutely accurate from the standpoint of, Jewish people who are concerned with the temple and the rules of the temple. And one of the things about early Christianity is the reason that Jesus is spoken of as being in the order of Melchizedek, a priest in the order of Melchizedek, is that Melchizedek represents sort of a secondary line to the Aaronic priesthood. You know what I mean? It's a backdoor, like, there's no separation of priests and kings. It's Melchizedek was priest and king.
Right.
And so
off in the middle of nowhere where nobody ever even knew anything about it.
Right. So, this is where Melchizedek sort of comes in from the Christian perspective. from the Buddhist perspective, that idea of purity still holds true. We do purifications in Buddhism largely, the same way. There's purifications of fasting and bathing and so on, but there's also visualizations and mantras to purify. But what are you really purifying? It's not sin in terms of doing something bad that God told you not to do, but it's all the things that reinforce your own ignorance, which distance you from enlightenment, or we may as well just call it divinity. And then you can kind of look at it in a Luciferian way in the same kind of avenue. Like, what keeps you from true freedom? What is holding you back from that? Purify that through the different methods. And that's what ritual purification is to me. Someone who is reduced the separation between themselves and who they really are, or at least peeled back a couple layers, is in a position of spiritual authority to be able to coax, command, and if necessary, bitch slap some spirits.
Right, but I mean, okay. So how many times have you had to bitch slap a spirit?
A few.
You?
Okay.
I mean, have you ever performed an exorcism where you didn't summon a spirit, but a spirit was causing trouble?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So then you bitch slap the spirit.
Is that
You bound it by oath or kizo, and then made it either fuck off or do something else, or whatever. So and I've had spirits, I've summoned spirits and then been like, oh, fuck this, like, no, I don't want you in my house. No. Like, absolutely not. Thanks, but no thanks. Bye-bye.
well, okay, fine. But I mean, the times that you've had to bitch slap a spirit, like Jason, how many times of those were for clients?
A handful.
Versus your own practice?
A handful.
Really?
Sure. Over the course of 30 years, yeah, of course.
30 years. What day is it? It's March 21st, 2020. All right. So since 1990, you've had a handful of spirits you've had to conjure that you've had to actually ask to leave? Seriously?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm still working with all the ones that I wanted to bitch slap.
I think
Maybe
Josh,
you're not
I
discerning enough.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying I'm smart. I'm not saying I'm doing the right thing here. But no, I mean, all the ones that vexed me the most have continued to be my companions.
I mean, I've still worked with ones where I've had to take measures to bring them into line and do things that they were supposed to do. But in terms of also like expelling ones, I think, Josh, there was that one time where I woke up and texted you and was like, did you send a spirit to prank me? Because I had to like cast that spirit last night.
I hope my answer was no.
It was no. But I mean, I think that happens. Like, that was one of the things my teacher used to say was, if you conjure spirits, you'll never be alone. So like Jason's magic is a rhizome thing, like that. As you do stuff's going to happen. You're putting yourself in a situation where you're more prone to those things being around you. Like I had my first shell reading a few months back, and
no, how'd that go?
I thought it was intense, but the reader was like, "Oh no, we didn't have to like kill any animals, so like this isn't easy." But
Whoa.
there was a particular spirit issue that needed to be mitigated, and part of his analysis, he was like, "Well, you spend a lot of time with the dead. Like you talk to the dead all the time. You have one foot in the world of the other side. So yeah, you're going to attract the attention of spirits related to that." And I think sometimes that's just part of the work. Like there's another weird period where I had like all these homeless people approaching me who had a lot of very bizarre characteristics and would like say really weird things where it very much seemed like they were manifestations of certain particular spirits. And people were like, "Why are you having all these spirits approach you as homeless people?" And I was like, well, homeless people they're on that fringe, they're on a marginal space already, so they're very susceptible to be that means of communication, and there's a lot of work I'm doing that's overlapping that world right now, so it makes sense that I'd get approached a lot. And so I think depending on what you're doing, you're more likely to run into those things, less likely than people who aren't doing them. Which is why I would imagine it wouldn't be clients as much as yourself, because your clients probably aren't doing stuff to have themselves constantly immersed in that.
Well, kind of his clients are.
So BJ, have you seen the meme about the Enochian hobo signs?
No.
I think so. When you open the door to what other world, let's say, of course we all know how to close the door, but there's a mark on the door now so that everybody on the other side knows that you have opened that door. And I'm sure that there are the hobo signs on the door that says, "This guy makes great sandwiches," and "This guy complains about terrible smells," and "This guy makes iced tea." Do you know what I mean? I'm being kind of silly here, but
Not at all.
Yeah,
you
like
can close the door, but there's a mark on the other side so that all the spirits or the beloved dead or whoever, they know that BJ Swain has opened that door before.
You might want to explain hobo signs, that you're not talking about like "will work for food."
that was what I thought.
No. So
hobos used to use to signal to other hobos.
Oh,
right.
okay.
So that, for example, there was a hobo sign. So hobos are homeless people who travel by rail, and they need places to hide, and sometimes they need medical care. A hobo sign would be, there's a doctor in this house who will treat you, or this lady makes good pies, or this kind of thing. And I'll send you the meme about the Enochian hobo signs upon the conclusion of this telephone call.
I will look forward to seeing that. But it reminds me of this M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense, where it's like the boy has all the dead people talking to him because they know he can talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But to the earlier spiritual purity thing, Jason, I liked your take on it. To me, I kind of look at it as a combination of sort of a Greek view and a Catholic view, with in the Greek view where you have those things that are ritually contaminating are things that distract you, so that like you feel guilty or you feel bad, and because you feel that way you can't do your religious things or your spiritual things because you're not in the right mental headspace, so you have to clean those away. But then also from a Catholic view, you have the idea of charisma. And so charisma can sort of mean like your talents or the things that you can offer to the world, but it can also refer to spiritual potency and internal spiritual power, which I tend to think of as like a capacitance or like a friction, where you're putting two things juxtaposed in yourself that create a movement that then gives you force that you can use magically. I guess I don't know if it's similar to the inner heat stuff that you deal with, or if it's a different idea. But to me, the idea of going through spiritual purity things, part of it is that clearing away so that you've got the focus, but part of it's also creating a juxtaposition in yourself between like the material and the spiritual, and creating a discomfort or a tension, so that the motion created by that tension creates that spiritual friction inside that gives you an actual material force that you can use when acting in the spirit world. So it's more of a mechanic than it is about necessarily being clean in the eyes of God, or clean in the eyes of the angels.
Oh, dude, can all right, can I add on to that real quick?
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things Jason Miller is responsible for in my life is a certain initiation into a certain Gnostic order. Yeah. So one of the first things he said was, you need to go bless some bread and some wine. Oh yeah, we're gonna go there. No,
Not an order. I ordained you as a priest.
Right. So, but you know what I mean, right? You're one of the floaty
wandering bishops. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Floaty bishops.
I like that.
I embrace floaty bishop. Somebody work the Latin out for that, and I'll.
Yeah, I don't know how floaty works in Latin. Oh no, did I lose the thing?
No.
I'm trying to show my screen.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay, cool.
Can you guys see this?
No,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. Little Debbie's Cakes of Light.
Oh, that's perfect.
I love this thing.
To get laid.
Did not evoke velociraptors.
That doesn't work.
Brain slugs. Oh my god.
But seriously, okay. So back to. All right, I was in the middle of a point, you guys.
Sorry.
No, it's cool. It's cool. The thing about about getting ordained and the difference it makes in your personal practice, I think that should be. I mean, prior to being ordained by Jason, and I guess the OTO came after, but whatever. It wasn't the same afterwards. Right? Like the angels and the demons, whatever they were that we talked to, it was different. It was somehow more familial. You know what I mean? It was more comfortable. It was more relaxed, and it was more. I felt pretty good about the whole thing. I don't know. Am I the only one that went through that? I mean, it was like welcome to the family kind of thing.
I don't know. I guess I felt like doing the HGA work and the Abramelin did a similar thing. I also think I celebrated Mass the day after I finished it. So and like made that as like part of the plan was I made sure to schedule a Mass for them. And so
I'm sorry for laughing so much.
The work kind of tied together, and I guess my KEW was like within a few months of that too. So maybe, but they might kind of blur together a little bit for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely feel like there is a certain greasing of the wheels with each of these, or different type of spiritual authority that is gained through ordination, that is gained through different kind of work, like the inner fire work that BJ had mentioned, and is gained through the K and C of the HGA. They overlap. I didn't get so much a welcome to the family so much as a, okay, you're a like Sarah was saying, you know, these are your credentials. Like they scan the credentials, there's the card. Okay, you know, you've got our attention now. So it helps in that way. The inner fire stuff just helps a lot with not only the spiritual authority thing, but with the actual communication and seeing and things like that. The inner fire stuff is, I mean, I've sat and done inner fire for an hour and not been able to get up for 20 minutes because I can't see across the room.
Yeah, but you're really old, so.
Well, I'm 47.
All right, so for the record, Jason is literally 1 year older than me. So I love to give him shit about that.
Well, watch who you're giving shit there, Buster, because I'm a whole hell of a lot older than any one of you.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, Suze.
And uber mean and very powerful.
Suze, you're one of my favorite people. So
actually, Suze, since we started the spiritual purity thing with the Greek magical papyri, Suze runs a Greek religious group locally and does priestess work in that context. So, like, what's your take from a Greek perspective on ritual purity and spiritual cleanliness and how that works in with your spirit work?
Well, I mean, anytime I'm going to approach the gods, I take a lot of trouble to be ritually pure. And anytime I'm going to approach the dead, I do the same thing. There's a lot of classes in between that I'm a lot lazier and more lackadaisical about. But the dead and the gods, I take a lot of care with the ritual purity thing and make sure I'm not miasmic.
what does it look like? Like, is it baths and...
Yeah, we'd love a procedure or some indication of how it works for you.
Well, if I've got time and can do a whole and do a bath and shower beforehand, great. But at the very, very least, I'll ritually purify water with fire, and sometimes herbs and the old Greater Eleusinian Mysteries incantation, and then I actually go through, I do each of the chakras, purify each of the chakras, and then I do the good old OCA thing, Damon, where, you know, the bowl of water and the blue-white light, and I'll do that too, if necessary.
How do you feel about the admonition that you do ritual purity for 3 days prior to a spell? And I guess I'm thinking about fasting and celibacy, and although I can't imagine that anything from the classical Greek period would involve not drinking alcohol, but something like that.
I myself that sounds Abramelin level, which I myself have not gone that far.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so celibacy is totally not necessary, right?
God, I hope not.
Okay, great. just making sure.
I mean, there's Hellenic prohibitions against, you know, performing certain actions on behalf of the gods if you're actually like spattered with splooge. So I wouldn't go there. But
are you listening to that, Chaos Magicians?
Oh dear.
No one wants your splooge.
Sometimes it's hard to be polite and not tell people that in the middle of like public events where they're like, "Oh, spirits want you to give them your semen too," and it's like, no, they don't. But no. I'm not gonna point that out right now.
With all due respect to the recently departed Genesis PRage, we you know, the spirits splooge.
God rest their soul.
The Topi filing cabinet lost forever.
But
yeah.
I think it's interesting that the dead are one of the classes of spirits where you're more careful about ritual purity, which I can think of that from like a deep non perspective, like the restless dead. There, I would probably want to be more cautious about it. But like with approaching like my ancestors, or well, I guess. Well, actually, I feel like for me personally, doing like necromantic work, sometimes there's been elements of doing things that felt taboo, and that kind of put me into the space to do it. Like, but the like working with ancestors, I guess for me that's like the comfortable everyday thing.
Ancestors are pretty mellow about the whole thing. Mine are, at least the ones I've met so far, anyway.
Yeah, like basically for me, my rules there are don't have splooge on me and put pants on.
I'm not your ancestor.
You're old enough to be. No.
Shut up.
You're not really that old, but no, it is definitely like that's. If I'm going and like lighting my ancestor shrine, then I'm kind of like, well, I'm not doing anything naughty the rest of the night, or at least within like the space of the next room, because that to me is like, I don't want my dead parents or grandparents watching that. But
Oh, come on. Your dad would be proud.
probably would be like.
Let's be honest here.
When I was going on like my first date when I was 12, he tried to buy me condoms. So
right,
yes, he probably would be proud.
He would be like, really like, yes, good job. Well done, sir.
It's done, and just all the ancestors are around the bed like,
yes! Woo!
That is probably what's happening, yeah.
Get some. I think that's basically like the ancestors' anthem. So.
Especially if it could possibly like further the line.
Well, even if not, they're happy for you. You know, doesn't matter. Speaking from the point of view of a person with a vasectomy, for fuck's sake, you know, it doesn't matter. They're still happy. They're happy for me because they're dead. They ain't getting any.
I was gonna say, now I feel like I need to go ask the dead about afterlife sex. And like,
no, don't. I will assure you that the results of that conjuration will be
3 a.m. to 5 a.m. is party time in the afterlife. If you look at the wheel of the sun,
right? 3:33
there. That's,
you know, and it's like, hello, yeah. Oh, anyway. God, it's nice to know that I'm not the only one.
I mean, basically, they just want alcohol and food. So, like,
well, yeah. They just watch the rest of the time. Well, anyway. Suze,
No,
where are you going?
I'm just letting. This is 40 times an hour.
Oh,
no.
Ed heard that you were talking about them. They're like, knock, knock.
So, Suze, I have questions about the Hellenic gods and stuff.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'm
And
excited.
You're like the only person I've ever met that knows anything about this shit. So, so I've got with Harper, we have gotten all the Hellenic gods for the planets up on our mantle, and we've been doing mantle rituals as one does. Is it any different than planetary magic? I mean, you've got the whole ceremonial magic background and all the stuff that you've done for with the OCA and prior experiences that we won't talk about. And so but no, I mean, is the Hellenic thing all right, so we did a PGM right today to to Mene, you know, a lunar god,
Goddess.
goddess. Yes, thank you. And it was wonderful, but really muted, you know. But is there what's the difference between like the 7 archangels of the planets versus the actual gods and goddesses of the Hellenic tradition?
Well, I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer that, because I mean, I love my ceremonial magic, and but I've never advanced very far.
I don't think you can hear my eyes rolling hard enough right now. Can you just...
Oh, sweetheart, I love you. So as far as planetary magic, I've done very, very little of it, but I have dealt with archangels, and I've dealt with gods, and that it's just so different, you know. Both of them are so not human, but in such different ways, because from the gods, at least from my gods, from the Hellenic gods, I do get a sense of interest and even fascination, and you know, not like you guys are ceremonial magicians, so I know you're not going to take that as ego, but you know, the gods, when you reach out to the gods, they're like, ah, cool, there you are, and they reciprocate. The angels are just like, you know what? They're just they're so cool, and they're so, you summon me, what do you want? Let's get on with it. Got other things to do. You know, there's not a lot of for me at least, not a lot of personal, oh good, this is Suze, what can we, let's hang out with her for a while. Let's get in, get it done, and get the hell out again. They don't give a shit about me personally. And so but I don't know if that answers your question, because I've never done planetary magic, not in any sort of a, you know, a Crowleyan sense.
Well, I'm not a Crowleyan when it comes to this. Seriously, my approach was doing the planets and using the archangels as the like go-betweens between us and the deities, you know, and like every one of our gods on the mantle over there have the archangel symbol next to them, usually, unless it's being used for other magics. But so when we started using the archangels as go-betweens between the planetary deities, you know, what you're saying is sort of like you feel loved, you know, and there was that change in vibration, I think, in our relationships with each of those planets. When I stopped using Tzafkiel as the archangel of Jupiter and used Jove as the you know, we worked with the Orphic hymn of Zeus, and it was entirely different, but including Tzafkiel, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I got nothing. It's
and maybe again, this is just my lack of experience in that department, but I've never ever used an archangel as a go-between for one of the Hellenic gods.
Well, yeah, but the go-betweens are sort of like part of the whole process, right? I mean, they're all diamonds, you know, daemons, whatever you want to call them. They're I mean,
yeah, you know, I guess you're right. I've never really thought. I mean, I sort of believe in emanation theory, and
yeah,
so
me
I
too.
can see what you're saying from that perspective.
Yeah,
I
me
guess
too.
I just being blonde, despite my grayness, I hadn't really considered the archangels as one of the emanations, but I guess you could.
I think the first thing that struck me on this was, Suze, when you talked about them both being so different from human. One thing that stands out to me with that is the gods, in my experience, are a loftier existence than the archangels, and you would think that would make them more separate from understanding humans, but it's almost like they get to a point where they kind of cycle back and grasp us better than the angels do. And there's more similarity between us and the gods than there is between us and the angels.
Yes.
We're made from the gods. We're not made from the angels.
I think that's it exactly. I think you put your finger on it.
But I think the daimones thing, that was what you were describing, the go-between. Like, to me, it's always been important in the Mediterranean world, in the classical world, it is expressed that the gods and the planets are not the same. They just relate to each other.
Right.
That's always how I viewed the archangels also. And Kupperman in Living Theurgy, he talks about that, lining up the choirs of angels with the orders of gods and daimones. And so that makes sense, because traditionally in a Hellenic or in a Roman context, almost all your interaction with the gods is actually interaction with a daimon that is representative of them and exists along their course of the sort of the golden chain.
Right. And Jason, isn't that the whole Christian thing too? Jason, you're like the most Christian person amongst us, right?
Me? Goodness. I mean, maybe officially, but I wouldn't.
I mean, I'm literally wearing a rosary and pray to Mary every day, Josh.
Yeah. All right. Yeah,
Hey,
sure.
David,
You're evil, and we all know that you're evil, dude. So,
but you know, I'm always struck by for me, the mystery of the gods is almost like, you know, like the angels are here. They inhabit this sort of impersonal and yeah, it's kind of a go-between area, although I don't use them as go-betweens between the gods and us.
it's because you're not a good
I
Neoplatonist.
think the gods are kind of, the mystery is that they are so incredibly imminent and passionate. When you think about
You're right.
the myths and you think about just the actions and the drives, I mean,
And the drama.
you know, you want to, and the drama, really, you want to have like a special like SVU for just like the Olympian deities, like, and then, but there's also this cosmic level that's beyond that, or not really beyond that, that's intertwined with that. So you have this very cosmic way of interpretation. So, you know what, like, all right, like as an example, when I was writing Advanced Planetary Magic, where there's 49 calls and each one calls upon 2 Greek gods related to the planets, and 7 times 7 is 49, so 49 calls. I was stuck for months trying to put together a call of Aphrodite in Helios, Venus of the sun. And I couldn't do it. And it was only when I dropped down and I was like, you know, because I'm not just calling them by planetary names, I'm calling them by their Greek names. And they don't like each other. Like, there's bad blood there. There's a lot of awful shit that went down. And so that was like the one thing where I switched to you know, Roman names and planetary names to kind of ease off on that passionate aspect and tap more into that cosmic aspect. And we were able to get that through. But yeah, the gods are, I'm always struck by how not human, but how relatable we are to them. Sometimes in good ways and sometimes in the worst ways, you know. So yeah, I'm actually gonna have to bail in a minute. I have to.
Yeah, we gotta make some food.
Yeah, us too.
Yeah, it's like we have families and stuff.
Yeah, I figured that
what are you guys cooking. on this quarantine. I'm doing a roast chicken over croutons.
I'm doing a salmon over briquettes.
Nice. What are you putting on the
Oh
salmon?
my God.
That should be safe.
Lime and no, wait, what is it? Dill, some lime sauce, and the usual.
Sweet.
Mashed
It'll be good.
potatoes, maybe.
Nice. My new favorite thing is to cut up a baguette and put it under the chicken.
Oh no, not a baguette.
I remember you posting about that like a year or so ago.
Underneath, and then you get like this soppy like crust. You get this soppy toasted bread under. So good.
Do you grill it or do you bake it?
No, I roast it. So I put it in a cast iron Dutch oven, throw it in the oven, and the bottom of the bread is buttered, toasts nicely. The other side of the bread gets all the gravy and fats, and it's just unbelievably like. Honestly, tonight, like when we're eating it, it's like screw the chicken. I'll just like the bread is.
All right. You know what, Jason? I love you to pieces, but fuck you, because we just cooked all of the last of our chicken that we have in the house last night, and it was just barbecued on the grill, and now I have jealousy and envy. So, just for the record.
I love salmon too, man.
Well, it's going to be really good salmon.
That's my dinner tonight. Salmon and
Nice.
Nice.
I haven't decided what I'm doing, but I have found recently that hanging out with irresponsible people makes cooking better. I had like a dinner date, and it was like, oh, I don't know if I'm coming now because I'm tired. And I was like, we were at the same event all day. Are you more tired than me? I got there earlier than you by an hour. And then it was like, oh, well, I don't know. It was like, I made this special dinner. And it's like, all right, I guess I'll come. But it was like, the dinner was like 3 hours later than it was supposed to be. And I was roasting like a roast beef. So like, instead of cooking it for like 2 hours or so, I ended up cooking it for like 5 or 6 hours.
Oops.
And it was much better.
Delicious. It was wonderful.
Yes,
And
that's
so-
how you make roast beef.
So make dinner for people who will be late.
Slow
All
cook
right.
where it's at. That's how I'm doing steaks now too.
Well,
I did steaks for the same person that way a month or so ago. It was interesting. They were very not like eating a steak.
How
I'm-
so?
I'm also wait.
Instead, it didn't because it was the same sort of thing of like an hour or two later than the planned time for dinner. The steaks roasted much longer, and so it was like they just sort of fell apart, and all like the fibers of the meat were coming apart, and so it was delicious. But it was basically like eating a roast beef instead of eating a
You
steak.
see, this is what happens when alchemists all sit together and talk about cooking. Actually, if you cook it a little longer, and maybe over some of this bread.
I do like to calcine my food.
Low heat,
Low
long temperatures. Long
20, then throw it onto a hot pan as soon as it comes out. Like cook it to 115, throw it on a hot pan and sear it.
Now I may have to go see if the grocery store has any steaks left now.
Yeah.
We don't.
How have your grocery stores been? Mine is getting slowly better.
Yeah, ours too.
I was there around midnight last night, and I was actually able to buy some cans of soup. I figured that would be impossible because that would be like the food people would stock up on, but most of the shelves were still empty. I thought I was going to pick up graham crackers for my friend, and like going through the cracker aisle, like, oh my God, why do they have all these crackers and no graham crackers? And it turns out graham crackers are with cookies and not with crackers. But they have them. So, but yeah, most of the grocery store was still empty, but they had boxes and boxes of stuff and like a huge amount of staff there restocking. Like it was really bizarre for like midnight. So hopefully they're back to normal soon.
Ours are pretty good, I gotta say. I mean, we ran out of butter, but you know, big deal.
The time before that, it was carrots, which I think is really strange.
I've just been stockpiling orange juice.
Smart.
And milk on your counter.
The milk is only for the dead.
Apparently, I would not drink that milk for sure.
Milk on my what are you even talking about, Jeff?
You
That
wrote a
poem.
poem about spoiled milk
Oh!
on your counter.
Oh, that poem. Yes, I forgot. Yeah, it was.
Very sad.
It was a metaphor for a really shitty person who assaulted another person.
Oh dear.
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was just actually you
About
left some
spoiled
milk
milk.
out.
No.
Broke the glass and had to clean it up.
All right, ladies, gentlemen, I gotta run.
All right. See you,
I'll
Jason.
see you guys later. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for
I
joining
also
us.
have to go.
Hi, guys.
Till next time.
Yep.
All right.
I'm
That
out.
was fun.
Thanks, you guys. This was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
All right.